I just finished watching Sakamoto Days. Let's see what I think. So to give a little background of what this anime is about, it's pretty much Sakamoto is the best, ultimate, greatest like assassin, and he's feared by like all villains and admired by, I guess, all the hitmen and other assassins. One day he falls in love and decides to retire and be a owner, I guess, of this convenience store with his family, and he has a kid. And that's like where we kind of like start off with this whole anime and roll from there. Now, although that concept is not necessarily new, I think this anime does a good job with how they put all the characters together in the sense of no character was considered an extra. Like, I feel like every character was necessary. No one was like, if you took this character out, would it change the story of the whole entire thing? Like, I feel like every character kind of like fit in somehow. I think like the most funny aspect of it is how we're introduced to the newer characters that somehow get recruited into his family and they start working at the convenience store. Like, we literally start off with it just being Sakamoto in charge of the store with his wife, and then by the end of the season we have like so many people working for him and they're all part of the Sakamoto family, which is so adorable. I'm sorry, have to say it. It is adorable. I know it's supposed to be like hitman, assassin, so cool and action-packed, but there's a lot of really cute parts to the whole entire series. When we come into like character development, I wouldn't say anyone changes drastically from, let's say, the beginning to the end with themselves, but what we do see is their backstory a lot and where they came from and how they developed from there to where they are now. So we're not necessarily like growing with them at the moment, we're just more seeing their past and how they are right now and how they're going to progress later on. Maybe if they do come out with a season 2, we might see a little bit more of that character development, but I feel like we don't really get it in this season in the sense of what we're watching of their development. Some might say, like the example, Shin probably developed a little bit more from when he started to at the end of the season, but I don't feel like he really did change. I think he just like finds a home in a way in Sakamoto's family that he doesn't really have prior to that. But like for Lou, I don't think she necessarily gains hugely from this. Okay, I guess a little spoiler, like she does lose her family, so she's kind of like wandering around without one, but she technically has a family, she just chooses not to be part of it, if that makes sense. So like it's a little bit different than with Shin, and I feel like that's not a big development for their characters. We're just kind of like right now where they are. But we do get backstory, we do get flashbacks into where they came from and how they used to be and where they are now and why they are the way they are. Now we do get to a point of where like obviously we have to get introduced to other hitmen who are kind of like coming after Sakamoto, because this is like the whole point of him showing how he's like the world's greatest assassin. So with all these villains coming after him, it's like they're not very intelligent villains from what I can tell, and like they are good. I guess they would be good hitmen. They're not very good in this situation because it doesn't seem like they do any real research behind Sakamoto before going after him. They just like, oh, we're supposed to be the ultimate assassin. I would be like giving great recognition if I take him on and defeat him because he's supposed to be retired and this, that, another. But like no one does research. Not one of them has ever done like massive research on him to find out more and where he's at now and how he is at retirement, because they literally, none of them really realize that he gained weight. So a lot of the assassins will like kind of like go up to him assuming he's who he is just based on a picture, and they're like, oh well, he looks alike. But I feel like they're not very smart. Now, granted, that might be like what adds to the comedic relief of it all, which is great. It just feels like, where's the competition? Where is the challenge for these people to go after him? Like, I get the little ones are going after him, but none of like the really massive ones are, in the sense of like hitman levels. Like the only real good challenger we saw come up so far to go against Sakamoto was Nagumo. I think that's what his name was. When he first comes around, like he's disguised as Sakamoto and no one else realizes it. That's how good his disguise is and how good he's acting like him, until he kind of like breaks character a little bit. how like quick-witted he is, and like he's such a good liar and manipulating others around him, and they all just seem to like fall into believing him. I think that is hysterical, and it makes the mystery of him, because it's like he's only showing us like 2% of his ability. Like this guy has way more in his pocket that he's not revealing at the moment. Guess you can say the villains later on that we see go against him are a little bit more challenging, but I feel like they made it look more challenging than it really was. Like it could have been ended really fast, and the fights were not needing to be as intense and could have been finished sooner, because Sakamoto is just so much stronger and smarter than a lot of these villains are. They don't really push the intellectual value, except for another person actually, now that I think about it. There is a villain that he goes against later on with Shin, and I think that was like one of the characters I would have to say was actually believable to be difficult for him to go against, because he was using experimental things to fight them. And these experimental things he was using were kind of unique in a way to go against them and to fight them. And it was kind of like using their own things against them, like their own strengths and weaknesses against them, which added to a lot of the funny factor in the fight of it, but also made it so believable where you're like, how are they going to defeat this guy? Because it seems like he may not be stronger physically, but he is stronger mentally, because he's a mad scientist. So he's like injecting them with his creepy things and just making them act differently, and then they can't use their strengths the way that they would. Like Shin can't really read the doctor's mind, and Sakamoto can't really use his super strength or speed necessarily against this guy because of what he did to him. That being said, I will say the villains aren't like horrible villains in the way of like, oh, they're like pathetic, I don't want to see this kind of villain, or like they could have taken this villain out and it would have been fine. I do like the different villains that they chose to go against Sakamoto. It's like these characters were like really thought through and weren't just like plopped in for, you know, whatever sakes and just for to make a laugh or something. Like all the villains were really good in their ways. I just feel like they could have been a little bit smarter about things, less surprised about Sakamoto, less surprised about that they lost. Like they all had the same like reactions, which could have been a little bit more different for each one. And even like the really strong villains, they're pretty much everyone said the same thing of like, oh, now I can see why you're considered one of the top, why people fear you. And it's like, now you realize it? Like there's a reason. There's a reason. So you can't be surprised right now about like him beating you or being difficult. And honestly, they can't even go with the fact of like, oh, well, now he's fat and before he was more fit and skinny. But you don't know if all his reputation was when he was young, fit. Like maybe he got half of his reputation when he was fat. Their surprise really comes from just being judgmental and superficial because of what they see. Like the thing I got surprised of is when he goes skinny mode and then he gets fat really fast within less than 24 hours. Like that is impressive to me and surprising, but I wouldn't say everything else is. What I do love is the whole family dynamic with Sakamoto, his wife, and his daughter. It's just so adorable. The little girl's definitely a little mini me for her mom. Like she repeats things her mom says, which is a little annoying, but it is kind of realistic of how some little kids are. But I just love the fact he dotes on them. So every time he's doing something, he's always like, my family would like this, my daughter would like this, or my wife would like this. And like he's always thinking about them and wanting to bring them to do things. So it makes sense more and more of like, oh, he really did like trade that life of being an assassin for a much better one that makes him so much happier. You can tell. It's not like he left that lifestyle and was like miserable and hating it and was like itching to be back into the field. He kind of left and was happy, was content with his life, and he doesn't care. He seems to like fall into a good routine with his life and the neighbors and other customers and people in the neighborhood and stuff like that. And I think that's something that like Shin and Lu see as like more and more they're with him and around him. They're realizing like the life he chose was a good exchange from what they came from. And if this man who's like top assassin, actually getting paid top dollar too. He decides to leave because he fell in love, to have a family and run a convenience store. Like, gotta say something about the good exchange of that. Like, for me, just based off of the story alone and the characters that we're introduced to, I like it. I can't hate it. It's actually really good. I thought I wasn't gonna like it at first because when it kind of first starts off, I was a little, I don't know what to say, but like underwhelmed because it doesn't necessarily start off with like action-packed hitting you in the face. It's just very calming. It's a little, not slow necessarily, but definitely doesn't kick in quick in the way of saying like action kicking in really. Because like obviously we get introduced to our characters quickly, but like that action factor doesn't like really roll quickly. But then obviously I kept watching and it just got better and better and better every episode. It really did get better every episode. I can kind of compare it to a mixture of like Spy Family kind of vibes is what I kind of get. I think it's the music that gives me the Spy Family, really. The whole like top spy, top assassin little storyline that goes there, and then how the family kind of starts to make them want to leave that lifestyle to be more on the docile civilian side of things, not so much being in this other side of like revenge and killing and almost dying every other day. And I don't know why, but like when I was watching it, kind of like Buddy Daddies comes into mind. I wouldn't say it was necessarily like similar a lot, but for some reason it gave me that vibe. So I guess if you want to go with like a feeling and a vibe kind of thing, Buddy Daddies kind of gives it to me. That's kind of like right now off the top of my head what I can compare it to, but definitely more on like Spy Family genre. I will say that the animation throughout it, I feel like they took their time. It wasn't like they were trying to cut things. They really did take their time with the action scenes and with especially the slow motions or the transitions from one thing to another, particularly like at this one moment where Shin, I'm sorry if this spoils it a little bit for ya, but like the reviews are gonna have spoilers, so just kind of like go with that. There's a scene where Shin is like on a roller coaster and he gets off of it, and kind of like when the coaster is going through the loop, he jumps off of it so that he can land on it back when the coaster comes back down to get this villain. The whole time you're thinking it's going to be like cut, just so that way they don't have to animate it. But I like the transition that it actually follows him as he's falling to get back onto the coaster. And a lot of times that gets cut. I like the fact they kept that in and they actually worked through it. And there's a lot of other scenes like that where they don't just cut it, they actually follow through with watching it. Especially with like a lot of these animes that have to do with agent, spy, assassin kind of themes. Kind of a given, you need to have these like slow motion scenes, show that action, show those weaponry, especially when you're bringing in like civilians and you're like on a train or on the streets and you kind of like need to show the slow motions because the civilians don't see it, but we want to see it to see like what's going on, us being blinded by everybody else, or like they do see it, but we just kind of want to see extra details of it. I like that the anime does that. It does like complete it through and doesn't kind of cut corners with that. Now let's look into the pacing of the anime because it's a very important thing. That's an aspect that could either keep your attention or lose it very quickly. Even if the story is decently done, like that pacing will eventually knock people off of it, right? I do think that they do a good job with the pacing in this anime. They don't dilly-dally on anyone's backstories too much. They kind of like touch and go on it and then they come back and revisit it. It doesn't feel like we're spending episodes and episodes on one person's backstory and not with the story moving along. They definitely do a good job with everything, and like every day, like every episode is like, oh, here's a new day, here's a new thing happening, here's a new villain, a new little hint on the backstory, a new little clip here and there, a new weapon, a new aspect of his day life, because at the end of it, it is kind of more on Sakamoto's regular day-to-day life more than it is like, here, let's bring him back into like this assassin lifestyle, especially since he really can't go back into it because his wife will quite literally murder him when she decides to divorce him, she would just be ending his life completely because he's so in love with her and wants his family, does not want a divorce, doesn't want to lose her or his daughter. So that would be like the last nail in the coffin for him. You know what I mean? These pacings don't feel rushed, but they also don't feel too slow. I don't feel like it's like that typical action suspense that we're getting. We're more on a here's a day-to-day life and this hitman just seems to come around and they take care of it and they keep their day going, and his wife and his daughter will go oblivious to it most of the time. His wife is quite good and perceptive, like she's good. His little girl is still very young, so we can't really like be like, oh, little girl's kind of dumb, she don't see anything that's happening or have like a sixth sense like her dad. No, she's little, she's a kid, she's like a baby almost, like she's still on like Parents' Day kind of level where that's the most excitement of her day, and if she can't come home and talk about her day or something exciting that happened, she becomes very sad. So she's on that level of kid. We can't like blame her for not noticing anything. It's kind of like they're all trying to make sure the wife does not notice anything. Sakamoto's wife knows that he's an assassin. She's not dumb. He didn't hide it from her their whole life. Like, she knows what he did and got him out of that because she, of course, like normal anybody else, like doesn't want someone they love killing another person, because the way that she put it, that person also has a loved one that you're potentially taking them away from. So I love the fact that she's not dumb to it, but I also like that she's not naive enough to be like he has to stay away from it forever, because when it does seem to come back into their life, her only thing is like, take care of it. Like, hurry up and take care of it so that way we can put it behind us and continue our lives. Like, I love that. It's not like she's like fighting against it, being like, stop being an assassin, stop doing this, stop doing that. Like, she's not annoying about it, is what I'm trying to get at. Where she's at least intelligent enough to realize, like, okay, this was his life before, it's kind of creeping back up, knew it was gonna happen whether we wanted it or not. She wasn't happy about it, obviously, but at the end of it, she's like, just take care of it. However you need to take care of it, take care of it. But rule number one is that they can't kill anyone. Still gotta keep the family, the number one family rule, don't kill anyone, but just take care of it. Now my favorite thing to always go into apparently is the voice over English dub. Because it's always one of those hit or miss things that it's either going to be really good or it's going to be torturous, right? I actually can't complain. It's another good anime that they picked fairly decent voice actors for everyone. Sakamoto, his voice actor, is really good, because I do this thing where like I watch it first in Japanese and then I'll watch it in English dub just to kind of like get an idea which one I'm going to continue in. Sometimes what would lead me to more go with the Japanese version is because I can't stand the English voiceover. I don't think it goes with the character very well. And mind you, there's some times where the Japanese original voice actor I feel like doesn't really go with the character, especially if I've read the manga before. That's not in this case, because I've never read Sakamoto Days, but just from like experience of in the past this situation happening. In this case, I would like watch a little bit of the Japanese and then listen to it in the English dub. And I have to say, there's one character that I felt a different voice actor would have been a little bit better. Now y'all tell me what you think. Like, do you agree with me or not that this character would have sounded a little better if it was done by another actor? Now when it came to this character, Nagumo, I felt like the voice actor that would have been a little bit better for him would have been Justin Briner. He's the guy that does the voiceover for Midoriya in My Hero Academia, as well as Hanako in Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, and so much more. Like, he has quite an extensive list. But can't you hear it? Because when I hear the Japanese version and then I hear the English one, there's just some kind of little mischievous, mysterious thing missing in the voice actor that I feel like Justin Briner would really do well by incorporating more of like that Hanako-kun kind of aspect of the voice to it, and then it would be perfect. I think it's meant for the character to have this voice that's a little bit childish but yet mischievously inclined. I don't feel like the English voice actor that was chosen fully delivers on that. It wasn't the worst. I'm not saying he was horrible. It wasn't the worst that I've heard for English dubs. Like, it was passable, but it just left me desiring more. And that's just me. I do like everyone else's choices. Shin's could have been a little bit better, but I don't hate it. I think it fits just fine. Like, it wasn't something that needed something else or another character could have done it better. Like, I feel like it was just fine. It was good. I don't think it was crazy. Same goes for Lou. Because even with all the villains, I feel like when I heard it in Japanese to the English, like, it kind of fit properly. So no one really needed to be changed other than Nagumo. Once again, this is my opinion, so you can say something differently, but this is just me. When you kind of hear this,
I was being honest with you. I promise I'd never tell a lie.
can you picture this?
I
kind of picture that.
Let me finish my work. I'll then leave you to yours. But now, I have no choice but to use force.
Once again, that's just my opinion. Okay, and just to like wrap this up into everything, would I recommend people to watch this? Yes. Would I tune in for season 2 if they came out with it? 100%. Like, I did enjoy it. It has its funnies. I'm intrigued to find out what happens next season and where we go from there, because they don't necessarily leave it on a cliffhanger, but they do leave it with the intrigue of like, what's gonna happen next season? Who's this mysterious villain we were introduced to at the very end who carries a very strong presence? I'm intrigued. You've got my attention. I feel like I do this often, but I pretty much just leave this open to anyone who has read the manga to kind of fill in the space here of the comparison for manga to anime adaptation. I did not read the manga. I don't have an interest to read the manga, so I would not be able to fill in the space of, does it satisfy the adaptation? Does it follow sincerely, or does it take its own wins? Because I mean, there are always going to be little changes here and there, but we just want to know if like it's extreme or if it's minor. I hope I did not deter people from wanting to watch it though. Like, I hope that's not something I did. I hope I did encourage you to want to watch it. I mean, you should always just give it your own shot. Don't always, you know, go based off what I say. This is just my opinion at the end of the day. Right?
I can tell that you've been through some